So over the last 3 years, I've been shooting a lot of different projects, and every project is a bit different. I always need a new piece of equipment. I need maybe something different than I needed last time, maybe a different light, maybe a different sound solution. But there are a few pieces of equipment that I almost always have in my camera bag. And I kind of want to go through some of my favorites and also why I bring these guys along everywhere. So let's start with the first one I'm actually using right now. This is the Sennheiser in-ear earbuds, I think. It's always a good idea to bring extra sound monitoring solutions. Normally when I'm doing an interview, I do bring an over-ear Sony headphones. But for those shoots where I'm running and gunning, or maybe I forgot the cable or something, it's always nice to have these guys just in case. Also, I have found that they are way easier to bring along, and they are far easier to just plug into one ear, still be able to hear what's happening, but also be able to monitor sounds such as the lavalier rustling, or if there's too much echo and so on. And these guys are kind of a lifesaver if you want to edit on the road. And also they come in this little cute case, which I find so cool. Whoa. So one thing that has stayed in my camera bag for the last 2 years without being really replaced or taken out or changed or anything is the Polarpro Slate. Is basically a big ass SD card wallet. There are two types, so check up on it before you buy it. I would recommend the SD card version for obvious reasons. So the Polarpro is made of aluminum, and if I remember correctly, it is waterproofed, crush resistant, and other fancy terms which I already forgot about. But in general, this is actually a super reliable place to put my SD cards and keep them safe. If you lose the SD card on the job, it's a nightmare. Hellish nightmare. A way to organize is basically putting my SD cards down on it. If my SD card is facing backwards, I know it needs to be checked and potentially formatted. If it's sitting face forward, I know that it's ready to be used for production, that it's already formatted and I just have to plug it into the camera. It has actually room for micro SD cards as well. I think you can push around 16 micro SD cards into this wallet plus 8 SD cards, which is actually a lot. And I also love the design of it. The clicking sound when you pop it out, it's just so satisfying. And I can highly recommend actually almost everybody get some kind of protection for your SD cards. And I highly recommend the Polarpro Slate. So this is probably some of the most boring I have in my camera bag. We have a microfiber cloth. We have these two super cleaning solutions from Zeiss, which supposedly can clean almost anything, and I have used them a few times on my lenses and once on the sensor. They work pretty well. And the last thing I bring is this. This is like a small rig multi-tool case, but I broke the whole multi-tool within like a week, so instead I used it for the rocket blower. Like my rocket blower just fits in here. Boom. So I can highly recommend bring a little cleaning kit, mostly because if your sensor gets dirty, if your lens get dirty, if there's too much dust, too much water, and it affects the image, you really don't want to be in a situation where you can't fix it. And also if you switch lenses a lot, like I do, I really want to be able to clean my sensor and clean the back of my lens, because you really don't want those black spots to pop up, because if you do, they're a pain to try to fix in post. So my next thing is actually this brick here. This is the Fxlion, whatever it's called. It's a V-mount battery, which means that it is actually made for both cameras, but also for light. I use it specifically because it has a USB-C out and a USB Type A out. In general terms, you can use it to charge equipment through the USB-C. You can charge it. You can charge this guy through USB-C, so you don't need to buy like a V-mount charger, which are expensive. With that said, the battery is actually not cheap itself, but that's a different story. But the thing that I like most about it is the output of it. I can use it for my MacBook Pro 13-inch M1. I can charge my MacBook from like 5% while I'm editing to 100% with this one battery. Really nice to be able to charge my MacBook to 100% while I'm editing, so a task that actually requires a lot of power from it, and then be able to edit again. So I can basically use this battery to both charge my MacBook, but also for my camera gear, my lights. I also do use it together with my battery charger for the Sony batteries. If someone forgot to charge the batteries, I can just plug it in and have it sit in the bag while we walk around. That, and also being a V-mount, I can use it for a light. So if I'm in a run and gun situation, I can just plug this V-mount onto my light and just run around without fussing with cables. because fussing with cables, bringing like extender cords and so on, it's cheaper and probably easier if you're only doing one setup. But the second you have to move the light around, they become a big hassle and a big problem if someone trips over them. Also the size of it, it's really small for being a V-mount battery. But I can mostly recommend it as a power bank for your computer, which is what I use it 90% of the time for. Last piece of equipment that I always bring in my bag is actually kind of changeable. I either bring a NAND tube or the Aputure MCs. I like having a small light just in case I get in a situation where I need it, or if I want to make a shot a bit more creative. Sometimes I bring the NAND tubes because I want a lot of power, a lot of light on me. Sometimes I bring the MC if I want to go something smaller and more compact. And also how I use them on set is different because of how different they look. The NAND tube, if it gets seen in the frame, it doesn't look that much off, depending on the way you put it. If I put it behind a TV, if I put it up against some metal, it can actually look like it was made to be there, like it's part of the scene. The Aputure MCs don't really have that. They seem kind of off if you've seen them, but because of their size, they're so much easier to hide. So both of them have benefits, and depending on what I feel like that day, or what I know I'm going to be shooting, or potentially what I feel like bringing, I bring different types. Lately I've been walking around with the MC, mostly for the size. In general, both of these are awesome. And that's kind of everything I bring along in my camera bag. Now, if you enjoyed it, do all the YouTubey things, but also tell me what you normally bring. Like, what is a piece of equipment that you love having in your bag for whatever reason? It might be the camera, it might be the microphone, it might be something completely different, because I would love to improve my kit as well.